18 months after Lena Hart disappeared, the emergency room made the call she prayed would never happen. "Sir, you're listed as her baby's father." On a rain-soaked night in Nashville, Lena ran through the hospital doors with her 9-month-old son burning in her arms, too weak to cry, too still to pretend everything was fine. She had no rich family, no powerful name, no one left to save her. Only one secret: the boy's father was Vincent Rourke, the dangerous New Orleans kingpin she had once loved, feared, and escaped. This is not just a story about a hidden child. It is about motherhood, power, control, forgiveness, and the terrifying price of protecting someone you love. Stay until the end, because every secret has a cost. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. By the time Vincent Rourke's plane cut through the storm toward Nashville, Lena Hart had already spent 18 months trying not to remember what it felt like when his shadow filled a room. Before the hospital, before Theo's fever, before the call that dragged his name out of the dark, there had been New Orleans. Lena used to think the city was beautiful enough to forgive anything. At night, the French Quarter glowed like a secret. Gas lamps burned against the wet brick streets. Trumpets cried from open bar doors. Balconies dripped with ivy, and the Mississippi River moved black and heavy beyond the warehouses, carrying cargo rumors and sins toward the Gulf. From Vincent's penthouse above the warehouse district, the river looked like it belonged to him. So did the ships. So did the men. So did half the city after midnight. Lena had not known that when she first met him. Or maybe she had known and chosen not to look too closely. Vincent Rourke had a way of standing in front of danger so completely that you mistook him for safety. He wore dark suits, spoke softly, and listened like every word mattered. At charity events, judges shook his hand. Port commissioners smiled when he entered. Business magazines called him disciplined private visionary. Private. Lena would learn to hate that word. In public, Vincent was a shipping magnate with elegant manners and old money polish. In private, he was a man people lowered their voices around. He owned Rourke Maritime Group, several warehouses along the river, a chain of restaurants, 2 security firms, and enough favors to make doors open before he reached them. He never said he was Mafia. Men like Vincent did not say words like that. They let other people whisper them. The first year of their marriage had almost convinced Lena she was wrong about the whispers. Vincent could be gentle when he wanted to be. He noticed small things. If she came home tired from the law firm, he would have dinner waiting from the little Creole place she loved near Magazine Street. If she mentioned a book once it appeared on her nightstand 2 days later in a signed first edition. If the air conditioning was too cold at a gala, his jacket would settle over her shoulders before she thought to ask. He knew how she took her coffee. 2 sugars, a splash of cream, never stirred too much. He knew she hated lilies because they smelled like funerals. He knew she slept badly when it rained, so on stormy nights he would pull her close without saying a word. His hand spread warm across her back as if his body alone could argue with thunder. Those were the memories that made leaving him hard. The rest made staying impossible. There were locked doors in that penthouse. Too many of them. A study she was never invited into. A private elevator that required Vincent's approval. Security cameras tucked into corners like metal eyes. Men in black coats who stood near the entrance and called her Mrs. Rourke with a kind of respect that felt less like courtesy and more like warning. His phone never stopped ringing. Sometimes it rang during dinner, sometimes in the middle of the night. Sometimes he would glance at the screen, kiss Lena's forehead, and disappear into the hallway, his voice dropping so low she could not make out the words. When she asked, he said, "Business." When she pressed, he said, "Handled." When she got angry, he said, "You're safer not knowing." At first, Lena argued, because she believed marriage meant sharing the things that hurt. Then she argued because silence began to feel like another woman in the room. Later, she stopped arguing because she realized Vincent never raised his voice when he wanted to win. He just waited. Vincent could make silence feel like a locked gate. One night near the end of their second year, Lena woke to an empty bed. The clock on the nightstand read 3:17 in the morning. Rain tapped against the windows, soft and patient. The city below was blurred by water and neon. She pulled Vincent's shirt around herself and walked barefoot through the penthouse, following the faint sound of running water. She found him in the marble bathroom. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows. His dark hair was damp at the temples. Blood ran in thin pink streams down the sink as he washed his hands with slow, careful movements. Lena stopped in the doorway. For a moment, the only sound was water. "Vincent," she whispered. He lifted his eyes to the mirror. Even then, even with blood on his knuckles, he looked calm. Too calm. "Go back to bed, Lena." She looked at his hands. "Is that yours?" His gaze dropped as if the blood had only just become interesting. "No." One word. No explanation. No apology. No fear. Just no. Lena's throat tightened. "Whose is it?" The water kept running. Vincent reached for a towel and dried his hands. The blood had settled into the lines of his skin. He looked at it with mild irritation, as if it were ink from a leaking pen. "Do not ask me questions that force me to lie to you." The sentence landed softly. That was the worst part. There was no cruelty in his voice, no threat, nothing dramatic enough to fight. He sounded tired, almost tender. Lena wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm your wife." Vincent turned then. His face changed, not much but enough. Something passed through his eyes and disappeared before she could name it. "Yes," he said. "That is why I am telling you to go back to bed." The next morning there were white roses in the kitchen and a velvet box on the counter. Inside was a diamond bracelet. Lena left both untouched. After that night, the penthouse stopped pretending to be a home. The windows became walls with a view. The elevator became a cage dressed in polished steel. The guards became proof that Vincent's love always arrived with a perimeter. Lena tried to make him talk. She tried over breakfast while he read port reports on a tablet. She tried in the back of the car while rain streaked over the glass and his driver pretended not to hear. She tried after dinner when the city lights softened his face and made him look almost like the man she had fallen in love with. Every time Vincent gave her a smaller piece of the truth than she deserved. "It's complicated. It's not your burden. I have it handled. You are safer at a distance." Distance. That word became the shape of their marriage. Then came the conversation that broke what little hope she had left. It happened on a stormy evening in August. The kind of New Orleans storm that did not fall from the sky so much as rise from the streets. Heat pressed against the windows. Thunder rolled over the river. Vincent stood on the balcony with a glass of bourbon in his hand, watching lightning touch the far edge of the water. Lena watched him from the doorway. He was beautiful in a dangerous way, her husband. Broad shoulders under a white shirt sleeves, rolled jaw, shadowed eyes, dark as river water. Power sat on him like a second skin. It had drawn her once. Now it made her feel small. "Do you ever think about having a family?" she asked. Vincent did not turn. The silence stretched long enough for her to regret the question. Then he said, "I have one." Lena stepped onto the balcony. Warm rain misted against her face. "That is not what I meant. I know what you meant." She waited. Vincent took a slow drink. Children are hostages waiting for a war. Lena stared at him. The city below kept moving. Music from a street band drifted faintly through the wet air. Somewhere, people were laughing, stumbling from one bar to another, living in a world where a sentence like that did not belong. "That is a horrible thing to say," she said. "It is an honest thing to say. You really believe that Vincent turned at last?" There was no cruelty in his expression. That almost made it worse. He looked certain. He looked like a man speaking from experience carved into bone. "In my world, every person you love becomes a way for someone else to hurt you." Lena's fingers tightened around the balcony railing. "And what am I?" His eyes softened. Only his eyes. "The reason I keep them all at arm's length." She felt the air leave her lungs. "No," she said quietly. "I am the person you keep at arm's length." Vincent said nothing. That was the moment Lena understood. He loved her. She believed that. Maybe she would always believe that. But Vincent loved like a man building a fortress around a flame, never understanding that fire needs air. 6 months later, she signed the divorce papers. The law office smelled like leather coffee and expensive grief. Vincent sat across from her at a long conference table in a charcoal suit, his face unreadable. His attorney spoke for him. Lena's attorney spoke for her. 2 years of marriage became account transfers, confidentiality clauses, property division signatures on cream-colored paper. No children, no shared debts, no public statements, no admissions of fault. Fault sat in the room anyway. When it was done, Vincent walked her to the elevator. The hallway outside the conference room was quiet, lined with framed photographs of men who had built fortunes and called it legacy. For a few seconds they stood alone. Lena held the folder against her chest because she needed something to do with her hands. Vincent looked down at her. She could feel him wanting to say something. It moved through the space between them like a hand reaching in the dark. He did not touch her. "You will be safer away from me," he said. Lena almost laughed. The sound caught in her throat and turned into something sharper. "You don't get to lock me out of your life and call it mercy." His jaw tightened. "It is mercy." "No, Vincent. It is cowardice in a custom suit." The elevator opened. For one heartbeat, she thought he might step inside with her. He did not. Lena walked in. The doors began to close. Vincent stood on the other side, silent and still, his eyes following her until the steel slid between them. That was the last time she saw him. She moved to Nashville because it was far enough to breathe and close enough to feel like she had not fallen off the map. New Orleans had been humid secrets and river fog. Nashville was hills rain, washed streets, guitar music leaking from open windows, and coffee shops where nobody knew her name. Her apartment sat above a laundromat in East Nashville. The building was old brick-faced and narrow with stairs that complained under every step. The bedroom window looked out over an alley where stray cats fought at night. The radiator clanked. The kitchen drawer stuck. When it rained, water gathered in the corner near the back door, and she had to wedge a towel there until morning. It was not beautiful, but every key on her ring opened a door she chose. That mattered. She found work reviewing vendor contracts for a small healthcare company outside downtown. The salary would have made Vincent's accountants blink in pity, but Lena did not care. She bought her own groceries, paid her own rent, walked herself home, slept without hearing men at the elevator or wondering who had bled on her husband's shirt. For a while, freedom felt like hunger. Then 5 weeks after the divorce, she got sick during a morning meeting. At first she blamed stress, then bad coffee, then the smell of someone's reheated salmon in the break room. By Friday, she was sitting on the bathroom floor with her back against the tub, staring at 2 pink lines on a drugstore pregnancy test. Rain tapped against the tiny window above the sink. The laundromat machines hummed beneath her. Her first thought was not fear. It was Vincent. She saw him before she could stop herself. Vincent in the soft blue light before dawn, holding a newborn with both hands. All that command turned helpless by something small. She imagined his face if the baby had his eyes. She imagined his voice going quiet. She imagined the wall inside him cracking open. Then she heard him on the balcony. "Children are hostages waiting for a war." Lena placed one trembling hand over her stomach. The apartment seemed too quiet. Her phone was on the floor beside her. Vincent's number was still saved. She had not been brave enough to delete it. For several minutes she stared at his name. Vincent Rourke. All she had to do was call. He would answer. Vincent always answered when something mattered. And then what? He would come to Nashville. Not tomorrow. Tonight. He would arrive with doctors, lawyers, security money decisions. He would move her into a safer building before she could refuse. He would place men at every door and call it necessary. He would choose the hospital, the doctor, the car seat, the route to the grocery store. He would turn every room into a command center and every choice into a risk assessment. He would love the child. Lena knew that with sudden, terrible certainty. He would love the child so fiercely that there would be no room left for normal. No playground without guards. No birthday party without background checks. No school without armored cars. No childhood that did not know the sound of locks. Lena picked up the phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. For 1 weak second, she wanted him. Not the empire. Not the money. Not the fear. Just him. The man who had once pulled her close during storms. The man who knew lilies made her sad. The man who might look at their baby and finally become honest. Then the baby inside her felt less like hope and more like a promise she had to protect. She deleted his number. After that, she sat on the bathroom floor and cried into a towel so the neighbors would not hear. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her palm pressed flat beneath her ribs. "But I'm choosing you." Pregnancy made Lena's life smaller and sharper. She learned the price of prenatal vitamins. She learned which clinic took her insurance. She learned how many ways people could ask where the father was while pretending not to ask. She learned that loneliness was not always loud. Sometimes it was standing in a thrift store holding a yellow onesie, realizing there was no one to send a picture to. She worked until her ankles swelled under her desk. At lunch, she ate crackers and apples because they were cheap and did not make her sick. On weekends, she took freelance contract reviews from small businesses and answered emails with one hand while the other rubbed slow circles over her stomach. At night, she read parenting blogs until her eyes burned. She bought a crib second-hand from a woman in Franklin whose twins had outgrown it. The woman's husband carried the pieces down to Lena's car, then frowned when he realized there was no one waiting to help unload it at the other end. "You got somebody meeting you?" he asked. Lena smiled the way women smile when pride is the last thing keeping them upright. "I've got it." She did not have it. That night she dragged the crib pieces up the stairs one at a time, pausing on every landing to breathe. She assembled it after midnight with swollen hands, a screwdriver, and instructions that seemed to have been translated by someone who hated mothers. When she finally tightened the last screw, she sat on the floor beside the crib and cried. Not because she was sad, because the crib was standing, because she had done it, because no one had seen how hard it was. Theo came during a thunderstorm in March. The contractions started just after midnight. Maggie Ellis, Lena's only real friend in Nashville, drove like a getaway driver through sheets of rain, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping Lena's wrist whenever another contraction tore through her. Maggie was a bartender, a former nursing student, and the kind of woman who could make a grown man apologize with one look. She had known Lena only 8 months and had already become the person Lena called when the sink leaked, when the car would not start, when fear came too close to midnight. "You're doing great," Maggie said as they reached the hospital. Lena groaned through clenched teeth. "I am absolutely not doing great. You're doing dramatic then. Very powerful. Very memorable." Lena would have laughed if another contraction had not stolen the air from her lungs. Labor was long, harder than the books had promised, harder than any pain she had known. There were hours when she wanted her mother who had died in a car accident when Lena was 24. Hours when she wanted Vincent so badly she hated herself for it. Hours when she stared at the ceiling and begged a God she had not spoken to in years to let the baby come out breathing. At 4:42 in the morning, Theo Hart entered the world, furious, red-faced, and screaming. The sound broke Lena open. The nurse placed him on her chest, warm and slippery and impossibly real. His tiny fists waved in the air like he was already angry at the world for being too bright. Lena looked at him and forgot every pain. He had dark hair. Vincent's hair. Thick black, impossible to smooth down. Weeks later, when his eyes settled into a deep brown that looked too serious for a baby, Lena would sometimes find herself turning away because the resemblance hurt. But in that first moment, all she could do was hold him. "Hi," she whispered, crying so hard she could barely see him. "Hi, Theo. I'm your mom." Maggie stood beside the bed, wiping her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. "He looks like he came here to start a fight," she said. Lena laughed through tears. "He gets that from his father." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Maggie heard. She did not push. Not then. Motherhood rearranged Lena's life around Theo's breathing. The apartment became Bottle's burp cloths, laundry, and the soft animal sounds of a newborn sleeping against her chest. Days blurred into nights. Nights blurred into feedings. She learned how to heat formula while half asleep, how to change a diaper in the dark, how to shower in 3 minutes while Theo screamed in his bouncer outside the bathroom door. She also learned that love did not make life easier. It made every risk unbearable. Daycare cost more than her first apartment after law school. Formula disappeared faster than money came in. Medical copays arrived in envelopes she opened only after Theo fell asleep because fear felt less selfish when the baby could not see it. Her company acted supportive at first. Then Theo got an ear infection and she missed 2 mornings in 1 week. Her supervisor, a narrow man named Kevin, who used words like team culture when he meant inconvenience, called her into his office. "We value you, Lena," he said. She already knew nothing good came after that. "But we need consistency from everyone. Long term, we have to consider fit." Fit. As if she were a chair in the wrong room. Lena nodded. She smiled. She thanked him for the feedback. Then she went to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and pressed her fist against her mouth until the panic passed. At home, Theo smiled for the first time that same evening. Not a gas smile. A real one. His whole face opened gummy and bright when Lena leaned over his crib and whispered his name. For a moment, the bills disappeared. Kevin disappeared. Vincent disappeared. There was only Theo looking up at her like she had hung the moon badly, but he loved it anyway. "You are mine," she whispered. "You are safe." Safe became the lie she told best. She said it during storms. She said it when strange cars idled too long near the laundromat. She said it when Theo coughed at night and her body went cold before her mind could catch up. She said it whenever guilt crept in and asked whether a boy had the right to know his father. Sometimes when Theo slept, Lena would search Vincent's name online. Vincent Rourke, Charity Gala. Rourke, Maritime Port Expansion. New Orleans business leader funds Children's Hospital Wing. The photographs were always the same. Vincent in a dark suit. Vincent shaking hands. Vincent looking powerful, controlled, untouchable. Once there was a photo of him outside a courthouse, face turned slightly from the camera, Cole Barrett behind him. The article mentioned an investigation into Gulf Coast shipping corruption, but said no charges had been filed. Lena stared at the image for a long time. Then Theo cried from the crib and she closed the laptop. The older Theo got, the more impossible the secret became. At 3 months, he began tracking movement with those serious eyes. At 5 months, he laughed whenever Maggie made a ridiculous clicking sound with her tongue. At 7 months, he developed a habit of gripping Lena's hair with one fist and refusing to let go. At 9 months, he could sit in the middle of the living room, surrounded by soft blocks, chewing on one like it owed him money. He had Vincent's stubborn mouth, Vincent's dark brows, Vincent's way of staring at people as if weighing whether they were worth his time. Maggie noticed. Of course she did. One evening, while Theo slept on a blanket between them, Maggie sat cross-legged on Lena's living room floor with a glass of cheap wine in her hand. "You ever gonna tell me who his father is?" Lena folded a onesie with too much attention. "No." That bad Lena did not answer. Maggie's voice softened. "Lena." The tenderness nearly undid her. "He's powerful," Lena said. Maggie waited. Dangerous, powerful, or rich, powerful? Lena looked at Theo. "Yes." Maggie set the wine down. "Does he know?" Lena shook her head. Maggie closed her eyes for a second. "Oh, honey, don't. I'm not judging you. Yes, you are. I'm worried about you. There's a difference." Lena pressed the folded onesie against her lap. "He said children were targets. He said anyone he loved could be used against him." Maggie's expression changed. "And you believed him. I knew him. That is not the same answer." Lena looked down. Theo slept with one hand open beside his face. A tiny, trusting hand. "I did what I had to do." Maggie did not argue. She only reached across the laundry pile and squeezed Lena's wrist. "Then make sure you know what you're doing if the day ever comes when he finds out." Lena pulled her hand away gently. "He won't." The lie felt thin even then. The Friday Theo got sick began badly and kept getting worse. Lena woke late because Theo had been restless all night. The laundromat downstairs had a broken dryer that thumped until 2 in the morning. Her coffee spilled across a contract she needed to submit by noon. At work, Kevin sent back a file with a note that read, "Please review more carefully before wasting leadership time." Leadership time. Lena read the sentence 3 times, then deleted the angry response she wanted to send. Daycare called at 4:18. Theo was fussy, warm, not himself. By the time Lena picked him up, his cheeks were flushed, and his body felt too hot through his little blue jacket. The teacher apologized. He just seemed off after lunch. Lena nodded, already calculating. Pediatrician, medicine, fluids, maybe a virus. Babies got fevers. Babies got sick. Babies recovered. She told herself that all the way home. Rain started before she reached the apartment. Cold rain hard against the windshield. Theo whimpered in the back seat, then went quiet. At home, she gave him infant fever medicine, changed him into soft pajamas, walked him around the apartment pressed to her chest. She hummed the old song her mother used to sing when Lena was little and afraid of thunder. Theo did not settle. His breathing sounded wrong, not loud, thin. Lena took his temperature. 104.1. "No," she whispered. She called the pediatrician. Voicemail. She called Maggie. No answer. Theo's eyes fluttered half open, then closed again. That silence did what no crying could do. It terrified her. Maggie called back as Lena was already stuffing diapers, wipes, a bottle, insurance cards, and panic into a bag. "Take him to the ER," Maggie said the second she heard Lena's voice. "I might be overreacting." "You are not. Go now." So Lena went. She carried Theo down the stairs without locking the apartment door behind her. She drove through Nashville in the storm with one hand on the wheel and the other reaching back to touch his foot at every red light. At the hospital entrance, she left the car crooked near the curb, grabbed Theo, and ran. That was where the secret finally ran out of places to hide. Now, 18 months after Lena walked away from New Orleans, Vincent Rourke was coming through the rain toward a son he had never held, and Lena, sitting alone beneath the harsh lights of a pediatric emergency room, understood that the past had not stayed behind her. It had only been waiting for a phone call. The phone call ended, but Vincent's voice stayed in the hospital hallway like smoke. Lena stood beneath the fluorescent lights with the receiver still warm in her hand, her pulse beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. Beyond the glass, nurses moved around Theo's bed with quiet urgency. Dr. Harper Sloan leaned over a chart speaking to another physician in low tones. A machine beside Theo blinked green, yellow, green, turning his small life into numbers Lena could not understand. She wanted to run to him. She wanted to run from the building. Both instincts hit at once and left her standing still. A nurse touched her elbow. "Ms. Hart, you can sit in the family room. We'll come get you as soon as we can." Lena nodded, though she had no memory of agreeing. Her legs carried her down the hall into a small waiting room with beige walls, a vending machine, and a television mounted in the corner with the sound turned off. A weather report showed a red band of storms moving across Tennessee. She sat in a plastic chair. Her coat dripped rain onto the floor. Her hands smelled like baby shampoo, hospital soap, and fear. Maggie called 3 times. Lena watched the screen light up and go dark. She could not answer. What could she say? That the secret she had defended for almost a year had broken open under a doctor's question, that Vincent Rourke was coming, that the man she had once escaped was now flying through a storm because their son might die. She bent forward and pressed her forehead to her hands. "Please," she whispered. She did not know who she was speaking to. God. The doctors. Theo. The universe. Please not him. Not my baby. At 12:41 in the morning, the hospital changed. Lena felt it before she saw it. The security guard near the entrance stood straighter. 2 administrators crossed the lobby with stiff faces. A nurse at the desk stopped typing and looked toward the elevators. Somewhere outside, a low mechanical thunder rolled over the storm. Not thunder. A helicopter. Lena stood. The windows at the end of the hall trembled as lights swept across the roofline. Rain blurred everything, but she could still make out the dark shape descending toward the medical center landing pad. No one had to tell her. Vincent had arrived. 7 minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Vincent Rourke stepped into the pediatric wing as if the building had been built for the purpose of receiving him. He wore a black overcoat over a dark suit. Rain clung to his hair and sharpened the hard lines of his face. Cole Barrett followed behind him, broad-shouldered and watchful, along with a woman carrying a medical case and a man Lena recognized as one of Vincent's private security officers from New Orleans. Vincent did not look at the nurses. He did not look at the walls. He looked at Lena. For 18 months, she had trained herself not to remember the force of his attention. It found her anyway. Her body remembered him before her mind could defend itself. The cedar scent of his cologne, the controlled stillness, the way every person near him seemed to understand they were standing too close to danger. He crossed the hallway in long, silent strides. Lena's spine straightened. Vincent. Her name came from his mouth like evidence. Lena. For 1 second, neither of them moved. His eyes traveled over her wet blouse, the hospital band on her wrist, the shadows under her eyes. Then his gaze shifted to the pediatric room behind her. "Where is he?" "He's with the doctors." "Where?" The old command in his voice lit something inside her, even through the exhaustion. "I answered you." His jaw tightened. "No. You delayed me, and you walked in like you own the hospital." Vincent stepped closer, not enough to touch, close enough for the air to change. "I just found out I have a son." The words struck her harder in person. My son. Not a theory, not a medical detail. A claim. Lena swallowed. "His name is Theo." Vincent's face did not soften, but something moved behind his eyes. A flinch so quick most people would have missed it. "Theodore," he said quietly. Lena hated that he said it like he had always known. Before either of them could speak again, Dr. Sloane appeared in the hallway. She was in her early 40s, calm, with tired eyes and a white coat that had lost its crispness some time before midnight. Mr. Rourke Vincent turned. His anger vanished behind a polished wall. "Yes, I'm Dr. Harper Sloane. I'm treating Theo. We're managing a serious infection. We've started antibiotics while we wait on cultures. His fever is high, but his vitals are holding." Vincent listened with frightening focus. "What do you need from me? Full medical history. Yours and your immediate families. Drug allergies, immune issues, seizure history, blood disorders, autoimmune conditions. Anything unusual. My mother had a severe penicillin allergy. My father had hypertension. No seizures, no known immune deficiency. My own medical records can be sent within 5 minutes." Cole was already on his phone. Dr. Sloane nodded. "That helps. We are being careful with medications. I'll take everything you can provide." Vincent's eyes flicked toward the door. "I want to see him." Dr. Sloane held his stare. "In a moment. Theo is my patient, not your asset, not your legal issue, not your war. My patient." Lena almost smiled. Vincent noticed. Of course he did, but he only nodded once. Understood. Dr. Sloane led them through the doors. Theo looked impossibly small in the hospital crib. Someone had changed him into a tiny gown printed with blue sailboats. His dark curls stuck damply to his forehead. An IV line ran from his hand. A monitor blinked beside him, filling the room with soft mechanical sounds that made Lena's stomach twist. Vincent stopped at the threshold. All the power went out of him. Not visibly, not dramatically, but Lena saw it. His fingers curled once at his side. His face went still in a different way, not controlled now, but stunned. Theo slept beneath a thin blanket, fever bright on his cheeks. He looked like Vincent. Even sick, even pale, the truth did not need paperwork. Vincent walked to the crib as if approaching something sacred. He reached down, then stopped, his hand hovering above Theo's. For the first time since Lena had known him, Vincent Rourke looked unsure. Dr. Sloane spoke gently. "You can touch his hand." Vincent lowered one finger into Theo's open palm. Theo stirred. His tiny fingers closed around Vincent's finger. Vincent's eyes shut. The room held its breath. "Hey, little man," he whispered. His voice cracked on the last word. Lena looked away, but not fast enough to avoid the sight of his face, stripped bare. Vincent bent closer. "I'm your father," he said so softly it almost vanished beneath the monitor. "And I am sorry I am late." Something broke in Lena then, not cleanly, not all at once. She had prepared for rage, for threats, for cold questions and legal weapons. She had not prepared for grief. She had not prepared for Vincent looking at Theo like the world had just punished him in the only place he had no armor. He stayed beside the crib for a long time. Dr. Sloane checked the monitor. Nurses came and went. Cole waited near the wall without speaking. Lena sat in the chair by the window, hands folded tight in her lap, watching Vincent hold Theo's finger as if letting go would harm him. After a while, Vincent spoke without turning. "When was he born?" Lena's throat tightened. "March 22nd. "What time?" 4:42 in the morning. A muscle moved in his jaw. Was it hard? The question surprised her. She looked at him. His eyes remained on Theo, but his face had gone rigid as if he already hated the answer. "Yes," she said. "It was hard." "Were you alone?" "Maggie got there before we reached the hospital." Vincent absorbed that in silence. The monitor beeped steadily. "I should have been there," he said. Lena's voice came out rough. "You made me believe you would never want to be." He turned then. Anger returned, but it was threaded with pain. "I said children were dangerous in my world. You said they were hostages. They are. That is not a defense, Vincent." "No," he said. "It is the truth." They stared at each other across their son's hospital bed. Theo shifted in his sleep. Both of them looked down at once. That tiny movement ended the argument before it could begin. Vincent lowered his voice. "Not here." Lena almost laughed. Even now he sounded like a man setting terms. "No," she said. "Not here." For the next 4 days, Vincent did not leave the hospital. At first, Lena told herself it was pride. Vincent Rourke did not abandon what belonged to him. He remained until the room bent around his will. He made calls. He moved money. He brought private physicians who spoke respectfully to Dr. Sloan only after she made it clear she would throw them out if they interfered. But by the second night, Lena stopped lying to herself. Vincent stayed because Theo had wrapped one fever-warm hand around his finger and ruined him. She saw it in pieces. The first morning, Vincent stood beside Theo's crib while Dr. Sloan explained the medication schedule. He asked questions so precise that she paused before answering. Not because he was challenging her, because he was listening. Truly listening. Every dosage, every risk, every possible complication seemed to enter him like evidence he intended to keep forever. The second day, Theo woke crying weak and hoarse from fever. Lena moved first, but Vincent was closer. He looked at her, and for one strange second, she saw uncertainty in him. "Can I?" The word was not a command. It was a request. Lena almost said no. The refusal rose from habit fear, months of doing everything alone. Then Theo cried again. She nodded. Vincent bent over the crib with the caution of a man handling glass. He slid one large hand beneath Theo's neck and the other beneath his bottom, lifting him awkwardly against his chest. Theo fussed. Vincent froze. "Closer," Lena said softly. "He likes pressure. Not too loose." Vincent adjusted immediately. Theo turned his face into Vincent's shirt and quieted. The change in Vincent's expression was small but devastating. His jaw tightened, his eyes lowered. He held Theo as if someone had placed his heart outside his body and dared the world to touch it. By the third day, he knew which monitor alarm meant movement and which one made nurses hurry. He learned to warm bottles, to test formula on the inside of his wrist, to change diapers with grim concentration, while one nurse hid a smile behind her chart. One afternoon, Lena returned from speaking with billing and found Vincent asleep in the chair with Theo on his chest. His suit jacket was folded over the back of the chair. His tie was gone. There was a pale smear of formula near his collar. His hand covered Theo's back with unconscious care. Lena stood in the doorway. She hated how peaceful they looked. She hated that it looked right. Vincent opened his eyes. "What? Nothing. You're staring. You have formula on a shirt that probably costs more than my rent." He glanced down, then looked at Theo. "Worth it." The words were quiet, almost careless. They were not careless at all. When Theo was discharged, the hospital lobby felt too bright. Lena signed papers with a tired hand while Vincent's private doctor spoke with Dr. Sloan. Cole stood near the exit. Vincent held Theo's car seat like it contained something holy. Outside, rain had softened to mist. Lena reached for the carrier. Vincent did not hand it over. "My car is waiting." "So is mine." He looked toward her old gray sedan beneath a dripping maple tree. "That car should not be carrying groceries, let alone my son." Lena's spine stiffened. That car carried him here when he needed help. The words landed exactly where she meant them to. Vincent looked at the car, then at Theo, then back at her. After a long moment, he said, "Fine. I'll follow you. You don't need to follow me." "Yes," he said. "I do." He did not raise his voice. He did not have to. Lena drove home with Vincent's black SUV behind her the entire way. Her apartment had never looked worse than it did when Vincent Rourke walked into it. The living room was too small for him. The ceiling stain near the window looked darker under the gray afternoon light. A laundry basket sat half full beside the couch. Bottles dried on a towel near the sink. A stack of unopened bills leaned against the toaster like an accusation. Vincent noticed everything. Of course he did. Lena set Theo's carrier on the floor and began unbuckling him. "Do not start. I have not said anything. You're looking. I have eyes. You have judgment." Vincent removed his overcoat and placed it over the back of a chair. The gesture was too comfortable, too domestic, and it made every nerve in her body spark. "I have concern," he said. Lena lifted Theo into her arms. "We have been doing fine." Vincent looked at her then. Not cruelly. That would have been easier. "You were one fever away from choosing between a hospital bill and our son's life." Her face burned. "That is not fair." "No," Vincent said. "It is not. But it is true." Theo stirred against her shoulder. Lena lowered her voice. "You do not get to walk in after missing everything and decide my life is inadequate." His eyes darkened. "I did not miss everything. It was taken from me." The room went still. Lena wanted to defend herself. She wanted to say he had scared her, that he had built a marriage out of locked doors and expected her to trust him with a child, that she had done what she believed was right. All of it was true. So was what he had said. Cole stepped inside and placed a leather folder on the coffee table. Lena stared at it. What is that? Vincent did not look away. DNA confirmation. Updated medical records. Financial disclosures. Custody filings prepared in Tennessee and Louisiana. A temporary relocation proposal. The blood drained from her face. "You had lawyers prepare this while our son was in the hospital." "Our son was in the hospital because I did not know he existed." Lena held Theo tighter. Vincent's gaze flicked to the movement. Pain crossed his face, then hardened into control. "I can file for emergency custody," he said. "You concealed paternity. You failed to notify me until a medical crisis forced you to. Your financial situation is unstable. Your support system is limited. I can provide medical care security and resources you cannot." Lena's voice shook. "You're threatening to take him from me. I'm telling you what the court will see. That is the same thing when it comes from you." Vincent said nothing. The silence was worse than denial. Theo made a small sound, his fingers opening and closing against Lena's blouse. She kissed the top of his head because she needed 1 second before anger swallowed fear. "You cannot just take my baby." Vincent's jaw tightened. "He is not only your baby." There it was. The truth neither of them could escape. Lena sat slowly on the edge of the couch. Her knees felt weak. Vincent remained standing, then seemed to realize how he looked. Too tall, too powerful, too much like a sentence being delivered. He lowered himself into the chair across from her. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. "I do not want Theo growing up without you." Lena laughed once, bitter and wet. "How generous." "I mean it." "Then why bring custody papers into my home? Because you need to understand the stakes." "I understand them. You think money makes you the better parent." "No," he said. "I think protection matters. You mean control. I mean survival." The argument had nowhere to go because both of them were speaking from old wounds. Vincent leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Come to New Orleans." "No." "Listen. I listened for 2 years. It was always the same speech with better lighting." His eyes flashed, but he held his temper. 3 months. A temporary agreement. Theo gets the best pediatric care in the city. Full security. A trust in his name. You work for Rourke Maritime as legal counsel. Clean contracts only. Compliance, import law, vendor review. Lena narrowed her eyes. Clean? Yes. That word does a lot of work in your mouth. For a second, something almost like humor touched his face. You are good at what you do. Better than half the attorneys I overpay. You want me on your payroll. I want you close enough to protect. There it is. Lena. No. Do not make it sound noble. You want Theo in your world, and you want me where you can see me. Vincent looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, Yes. The honesty stopped her. Yes, he repeated. I want my son where I can protect him. I want his mother where no one can use her to reach him. I want the 9 months I lost to be the last thing you ever keep from me. Lena looked down at Theo. His fever was gone, but he still looked tired from the fight. His cheek rested against her shoulder, soft and trusting. New Orleans meant Vincent. Vincent meant danger. Nashville meant struggle. Struggle had almost cost Theo his life. That night after Vincent left, 2 men posted outside her building. Despite her objections, Lena called Maggie. Her friend answered on the first ring. Tell me you are not alone with him. Lena sat on the bathroom floor with the shower running so the guards outside the apartment could not hear. He wants me to move to New Orleans. Maggie went silent. Then very softly, Absolutely not. He is threatening custody. He is Vincent Rourke. I'm surprised he didn't threaten the weather for raining on him. Lena almost smiled. Then the laugh broke into something too close to a sob. I'm tired, Maggie. I know. No, I don't think you do. I am tired in places sleep cannot reach. I'm tired of bills and daycare and pretending I'm not scared every time Theo coughs. I'm tired of being the only person standing between him and the world. Maggie's voice softened. And you think Vincent is safe? Lena closed her eyes. I think Vincent is dangerous. Good. Hold on to that. I also think he loves Theo. A long pause. I believe you, Maggie said. Lena opened her eyes. You do? Yes. Dangerous men can love. That is what makes them dangerous in a different way. Lena pressed her forehead to her knees. I don't know what to do. You make terms, real ones, in writing. You get your own lawyer. You do not let guilt sign anything for you. The next evening, Vincent returned at 6 exactly. Lena had spent the day writing conditions on the back of an overdue electric bill while Theo napped. Every line felt too small and too enormous. Vincent entered carrying coffee she had not asked for and a stuffed blue rabbit for Theo. Lena looked at it. Bribery strategy. At least you are honest. Only with you, apparently. The answer landed between them. For a moment, she saw the old intimacy flicker dangerous and familiar. She forced herself to look away. We need to talk. Vincent set the coffee on the counter. If I come to New Orleans, these are the terms. His gaze dropped to the paper in her hand. You made a list. I was married to you. I know better than to improvise. Something like pride touched his face. Read it. Lena took a breath. Joint legal custody. Equal say in medical care, education, travel, and anything involving Theo's safety. Agreed. She blinked. My work stays legal. Fully legal. I will not review fake contracts, shell companies, suspicious transfers, or anything that puts me at risk. Agreed. I keep my own bank account. Of course, I choose my own attorney before signing anything final. Smart. Do not praise me like one of your employees. You are negotiating well. Vincent. He lifted one hand slightly. Continue. I can speak to Maggie whenever I want. No monitoring my personal calls. His face gave nothing away. Agreed. And you do not lie to me about threats involving Theo. That one changed the room. Vincent looked toward the rain-streaked window. Lena, no. That is the term. If someone is watching us, if someone threatens him, if your world gets close to my child, I hear it from you, not from a guard at the door, not from a headline, not from blood on your hands. The memory passed between them. His voice lowered. Agreed. Lena looked at the last line. Her mouth went dry. And if I decide I need to leave you, do not stop me. Vincent went still. With Theo, yes. No. The answer came too quickly. Her fingers tightened around the paper. Then everything before that means nothing. It means I will respect you until your decision puts my son in danger. Our son, he corrected. And if you run with him again, I will come after you. The words struck like a hand closing around her throat. Vincent stood, then stopped himself from stepping closer. I will not apologize for that. At least you are honest. You asked me not to lie. I asked you not to cage me. I am trying to keep you alive. No, Lena said, anger rising through fear. You are trying to make sure you never feel powerless again. That hit him. For the first time, Vincent looked away. Theo babbled softly from his blanket on the floor, reaching for the stuffed rabbit. Lena gave it to him with shaking hands. Vincent's voice was quieter when he spoke. You think I felt powerful in that hospital? Lena looked at him. He met her eyes. I walked into that room and saw my son connected to machines. I did not know his birthday. I did not know what song calmed him down. I did not know how he liked to be held. I could not fix it with money. I could not threaten it into going away. I was a stranger to my own child. His control cracked just enough for her to see the grief underneath. You did that to me, Lena. Her eyes filled. I know. The admission cost her. Vincent heard it. The anger in his face shifted, not gone, but less sharp. I should have told you, she said, but you should have given me one reason to believe my child would have a life with you that was not built behind bulletproof glass. Vincent closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he looked tired. I cannot promise normal. I know. I cannot promise danger will never touch him. I know that too. I can promise that if it does, it goes through me first. Lena hated that the promise comforted her. She hated that part of her believed no wall in the world was safer than Vincent Rourke standing between Theo and harm. She placed the paper on the coffee table. 3 months, she said. Temporary. My attorney reviews everything. I work legal only. I keep my independence. You do not threaten to take Theo from me unless I actually endanger him. Vincent studied her. And if after 3 months you want to leave, we discuss it through lawyers. His jaw tightened. That is not a promise I let you go. No, Lena said. It is a promise I will not disappear. That mattered to him. She saw it. Vincent nodded once. 3 months. The agreement did not feel like peace. It felt like a ceasefire signed in a room full of ghosts. 2 days later, Lena packed the apartment. There was not much to pack, which hurt more than she expected. Theo's clothes filled one suitcase. Her own filled another. Books went into cardboard boxes from the laundromat office. Maggie came over and stood in the doorway with red eyes and a paper bag full of snacks Lena knew she would forget to eat. You call me every day? Maggie said. I will. I mean every day. I know. Maggie looked past her at Vincent, who stood near the crib with Theo in his arms. Theo had one fist hooked into Vincent's collar and seemed deeply pleased with himself. Maggie's eyes narrowed. You hurt her. I don't care how many men you have. Vincent looked at her calmly. Fair. Maggie blinked, clearly annoyed that he had not argued. Lena almost laughed. Almost. At the door she paused with the key in her palm. This apartment had been hard, lonely, too small, too loud, too cold in winter, too hot in summer. But it had been hers. She had become a mother here. She had survived here. She had built a life with shaking hands and no witness. Vincent stood beside her, Theo resting against his chest. "We can wait another day," he said. The gentleness in his voice nearly undid her. Lena shook her head. "If I wait, I might change my mind." "I know." She slipped the key through the landlord's mail slot. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sidewalk shone under a pale morning sky. Nashville moved around her in ordinary ways. A man walked past with coffee. A dog barked from an upstairs window. Somewhere a car radio played an old country song about leaving. Vincent secured Theo into the car seat himself. He checked the straps twice, then stepped back and looked at Lena across the open door. "You can ride with him." "I plan to. I know. I wanted you to hear me offer." That was new. Lena climbed into the back seat beside Theo. Vincent closed the door gently. As the SUV pulled away from the curb, Lena looked back at the brick building until it disappeared around the corner. Theo kicked his feet and chewed on the stuffed rabbit Vincent had brought him. In the front seat, Vincent turned slightly every few minutes to make sure his son was still breathing. Lena watched him do it and said nothing. The road stretched south through wet morning light, carrying them toward New Orleans, toward old wounds, locked gates, and a man who had once broken her heart now learning the weight of the life he had never known. By the time the first signs for Louisiana appeared through the windshield, Lena had stopped counting the miles and started counting the ways Vincent checked on Theo. He did it quietly, almost carefully. Every few minutes his head turned just enough for him to see the car seat in the back. His eyes moved over Theo's blanket, his tiny hands the rise and fall of his chest. Then Vincent faced forward again, jaw tight, as if each breath from his son was evidence he had not yet failed. Lena sat beside Theo with one hand resting near his ankle. The highway ran dark and wet beneath the SUV. Dawn spread pale across the sky, turning the road silver. Nashville was behind them now. So was the apartment above the laundromat. So was the version of Lena who had believed distance could keep the past from finding her. Theo slept through most of the drive, one cheek pressed against the soft blue rabbit Vincent had brought him. Every now and then, he made a small sound in his sleep, and Lena's body answered before her mind did. She touched his blanket, checked his face, counted one breath, then another. She was not the only one. Vincent noticed everything. New Orleans rose around them in the late afternoon, humid and glittering after rain. The city looked exactly as Lena remembered and nothing like she wanted it to. Iron balconies, wet brick, palm fronds trembling in the warm wind, music slipping from open doors even before sunset. The smell of river water, coffee, fried food, and something old beneath it all. A city with a beautiful smile and blood under its fingernails. Vincent's SUV moved through it like the streets had been cleared for him. Maybe they had. Cars shifted out of the lane too easily. Men near corners looked once, then looked away. At a red light, a police cruiser paused beside them. The officer inside glanced at Vincent, then forward again. Lena saw it. She saw all of it. Vincent turned from the front seat. "You're quiet. I'm back in your city. Our city once." "No," Lena said. "It was never mine. I was just living inside your walls." His expression did not change, but his hand tightened on his knee. Theo stirred. Vincent's attention left her instantly. He watched the baby until Theo settled again. That was new. And because it was new, Lena did not trust it. They pulled into the private garage beneath a limestone building near the river. The elevator opened only after Cole placed his thumb against a small black reader. Lena stared at it. Vincent caught the look. "It is for security." "Of course it is." The elevator rose without a sound. Theo woke just as the doors opened, blinking slowly, mouth soft and confused. Vincent unbuckled him before Lena could reach over. "I can get him," she said. Vincent paused. His hands stayed on the straps. "I know." For a second she thought he might continue anyway. Then he stepped back. Lena lifted Theo herself. It was a small thing, too small for anyone else to notice, but Vincent had stopped. He had let her choose. That frightened her more than if he had ordered her aside. The apartment was beautiful in the way expensive places could be beautiful without feeling alive. Pale stone floors, cream walls, tall windows facing the Mississippi. The river below was slow and black, reflecting city lights like broken gold. There were fresh flowers on the table, not lilies. Vincent had remembered that. Lena hated that he had remembered. Cole carried bags inside. Another man in a gray suit disappeared down a hallway. Lena shifted Theo higher on her hip and walked toward the room where a soft light was glowing. She stopped in the doorway. The nursery was ready. Not half ready. Not temporary. Ready. A white crib stood against the wall. Drawers were filled with folded clothes in perfect stacks. Diapers were arranged by size. A rocking chair sat near the window. A small wooden mobile of clouds and riverboats turned slowly above the crib, stirred by air she could not feel. Lena went cold. Vincent came to stand behind her. "You had this prepared?" "Yes." When his silence answered before he did. "While he was in the hospital." Lena turned. "So while I was sleeping in a plastic chair and wondering if our son would survive the night you were furnishing a nursery in New Orleans, I was preparing a place for him to sleep." "No," she said. "You were preparing to win." Vincent's mouth tightened. "I prepare for every outcome. He is not an outcome. I know that. Do you?" Theo reached for the mobile, babbling softly. Vincent stepped closer without thinking, lifting his hand so the wooden riverboat spun within Theo's reach. The baby smiled. One small, tired smile. The fight went thin between them. Not gone. Only waiting. The first week in New Orleans was a lesson in comfort that felt too much like surrender. The sheets were softer than anything Lena owned. Theo's formula was stocked before she asked. A pediatrician from one of the best private practices in the city came to examine him the morning after they arrived. The refrigerator filled itself. Laundry disappeared and returned folded. Bills stopped existing in any visible form. Lena should have felt relief. Instead, she felt watched. Men stood near the elevator. Men waited in the lobby. Men changed shifts outside the garage. They were polite. Always polite. They called her Ms. Hart after she corrected the first one who said Mrs. Rourke. They held doors without looking directly at her. They carried bags. They did not ask questions. That was the worst part. Their silence belonged to Vincent. Lena worked from the dining table while Theo napped. Rourke Maritime sent contracts through an encrypted portal Vincent's legal team had set up by sunrise. Import agreements, vendor terms, insurance clauses, port compliance language, storage leases, customs documentation. Clean work, Vincent had said. On paper it was. Lena read every line twice anyway. She searched for shell entities, hidden transfers companies that appeared too recently vague language around cargo movement. She flagged anything that smelled wrong. To her surprise, Vincent did not dismiss her notes. The first time she challenged a vendor contract, he came home at 6, removed his jacket, rolled his sleeves, and stood across the table while she pointed to the clause. "This company was formed 11 months ago," she said. "Its registered address is a mailbox in Biloxi. The indemnity language is too broad, and whoever drafted this buried the cargo substitution rights in paragraph 14. Vincent read silently. Lena waited for the old impatience. Instead, he picked up a pen and circled the clause. "You are right." She blinked. "I know." His mouth curved faintly. "Then why do you look surprised? Because you hate being corrected." "I hate incompetence." This is not incompetence. That might be the closest thing to a compliment I ever get from you." His eyes moved over her face slow enough to warm the air. "You used to get better ones." Lena looked down at the contract. "Those came with too many secrets." Vincent said nothing. Sometimes his silence still felt like a door closing. Sometimes it felt like he was learning not to defend the indefensible. She did not trust the difference yet. Every evening Vincent came home at 6. Exactly 6. No matter how many calls, meetings, shipments, or fires burned in the parts of his life Lena could not see. He appeared in Theo's nursery at 6 with his sleeves rolled up and his attention already shifting from empire to child. At first, Theo stared at him. Then he reached. By the 4th night, Theo crawled across the rug when Vincent entered, moving with wild determination, one sock half-off hair sticking up in dark curls. Vincent froze for half a second. Then he crouched. "There he is." Theo squealed and slapped both hands against the floor. Vincent lifted him high enough to make him laugh. The sound filled the nursery bright and ordinary, and for a moment Lena forgot the men outside the door. That was dangerous. Not because Vincent was pretending, because he was not. The apartment began to feel smaller by the day. Beautiful, yes. Safe, maybe. But Lena could not walk to the corner without a guard behind her. She could not take Theo to the window without seeing the reflection of a man near the door. She could not breathe without wondering whether the air had been approved by Vincent. On the 8th morning, she told him she was taking Theo to the park. Vincent looked up from his phone. "No." Lena laughed once. It came out sharp. That was not a request. His eyes lifted to hers. "The park is public. Children go to parks, Vincent, not without security." "Fine. Send your shadows. But I am taking my son outside. Our son." "Our son," she said. "Who needs sunlight?" He held her gaze for a long moment. Then he looked at Cole. 2 men, distance, no crowding her. Lena hated that this felt like a victory. The park was 2 blocks away, tucked between old buildings and live oaks dripping moss. The morning air smelled like wet leaves and coffee from a nearby cafe. Mothers pushed strollers. A little girl in pink rain boots jumped in puddles. A man jogged past with earbuds in breathing hard. Normal life. Lena held on to it with both hands. Theo sat in the baby swing wearing a navy jacket, his face serious at first. Then Lena pushed him gently, and he laughed. His whole body joined the sound. Feet kicking, hands opening, mouth wide with joy. Lena laughed too. For 10 minutes she was almost an ordinary mother at an ordinary park on an ordinary morning. Then she saw the men across the street. 3 of them. They were not Vincent's. She knew that immediately. No suits, no careful posture, no practiced invisibility. One leaned against a brick wall smoking. One looked down at his phone without touching the screen. The third watched Theo openly. He had a tattoo behind his left ear, a black dagger wrapped in a rosary. Lena's hands went still on the swing chain. Theo kicked, demanding another push. One of Vincent's guards stepped closer. "Ms. Hart." She hated how calmly he said it. She hated that he had seen them too. "We are leaving," she said. The guard's hand moved inside his jacket. The man with the tattoo smiled. Not at the guard. At Lena. She lifted Theo from the swing too quickly. He fussed, startled, but she pressed him tight to her chest and walked. She did not run. Running would have given the men something. But every step back to the apartment felt like crossing open ground while a rifle found her spine. Cars sounded too loud. Doorways looked too dark. The elevator took forever. When the doors closed behind her, Lena finally let herself shake. Vincent arrived at 6. Theo had forgiven the park by then. He sat on the nursery rug with soft blocks chewing on a yellow one like it had offended him. The moment Vincent stepped inside, Theo dropped the block and crawled toward him. Vincent picked him up. "There he is," he murmured. Lena waited until Theo settled against Vincent's shoulder. There were men at the park today. Vincent's hand stilled on Theo's back. He did not look at her right away. "Mine? No." "Describe them." She did. The smoker, the phone, the man with the tattoo, the black dagger wrapped in a rosary. Vincent's face emptied. That was how Lena knew. He shifted Theo to one arm and took out his phone with the other, typing fast and silent. "Vincent." He sent a message. "Vincent." His eyes lifted. For 1 second she watched him calculate. How much truth to give, how much fear to allow into the room, how much control he could keep if he chose silence. Her voice hardened. "You promised." Something changed in his face. He put the phone away. The Marino family. The name seemed to darken the nursery. Lena swallowed. "You told me they were a business problem." "They are. They were watching Theo at a park." Vincent looked down at the baby in his arms. Theo patted his cheek with one clumsy hand, unaware that the world around him had narrowed. "They know about him now." Lena felt the sentence like ice under her skin. "How? When I flew to Nashville, I broke patterns I had kept in place for years. I moved doctors. I moved aircraft. I moved people through channels I normally keep separate. I showed urgency, so your enemies followed you to us." His shoulders tightened. "Yes." She wanted to throw something at him. At the window. At the city. At the life he carried behind him like smoke. "You said coming here would make him safer." "It does. They found him. And if you had stayed in Nashville, they would have found him without me standing between them and his crib." She hated that. Hated the brutal sense of it. "I cannot raise him like this." Vincent's voice lowered. "No, not here." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "We moved to Mandeville." Lena stared at him. "Of course you have another house. 27 acres. Controlled access. Private security. Distance from public streets. A fortress. A home. With guards. With gates. With cameras. With our son alive inside." The room went silent. Theo rested his head against Vincent's shoulder, sleepy now, one hand curled in his shirt. Lena looked at him. The anger had nowhere to go because underneath it was terror. Underneath the terror was the terrible knowledge that Vincent might be right. They moved the next morning. Lena called Maggie from the SUV as they crossed Lake Pontchartrain. Water stretched on both sides of the bridge, flat and gray beneath the sky. Theo slept beside her. Vincent sat in the front speaking softly into his phone, though Lena knew he could hear more than most people. Maggie answered with no greeting. "Where are you?" "In Louisiana." "I know that part. Your texts have been suspiciously calm, which means everything is on fire." Lena closed her eyes. "We are moving to Vincent's estate in Mandeville." Silence. Then Maggie said very softly, "Lena." There were men watching Theo at the park. Vincent's men. No. Maggie cursed under her breath. Lena looked toward the front seat. Vincent's head turned slightly, but his eyes stayed on the road ahead. "I can't explain everything right now." That sentence has never introduced anything healthy. "I know. Are you safe?" Lena watched Vincent lower his phone and look out over the water. His face was calm. Too calm. "I don't know how to answer that anymore." Maggie's voice changed. Less anger now. More fear. "Can you leave if you need to?" Lena looked ahead as the bridge carried them toward the north shore. "I am still figuring that out." The estate appeared behind a long wall of live oaks and iron fencing. The gate opened before the SUV stopped. Cameras turned in quiet black domes along the drive. Men stood near the entrance in dark coats, hands folded, eyes alert. The house itself was pale stone. Tall windows, wide porches, and old Southern elegance sharpened by modern security. It might have belonged in a magazine if not for the armed men at the doors. Inside it smelled of cedar lemon polish and old books. A fire burned in the main room despite the damp heat outside. Theo's nursery was near Vincent's suite across from a bedroom prepared for Lena. Not in another wing, not hidden away. Close enough for her to hear Theo if he cried, close enough for Vincent to hear him too. Lena stood in the doorway of her room. Vincent waited behind her. "I can move you farther down the hall if you want." She looked back at him. "Can you?" "Yes. Or will you just explain why this is safer?" A flicker of pain crossed his face. "I can move you." That was another small thing. Too small. Too dangerous. She kept the room. The estate revealed itself in layers. Panic buttons disguised as light switches. Reinforced doors that closed too softly. Security monitors hidden behind cabinet panels. A locked room beneath the house that Vincent did not mention. A garden courtyard where Theo could crawl beneath the eyes of 4 cameras and 2 armed men pretending not to watch. Lena began to understand that wealth did not remove danger. It organized it. Her work continued in the library. Rourke Maritime sent more contracts. She reviewed them while Theo played on a blanket near her feet. The work stayed clean on paper, but Vincent's world left fingerprints in the margins. A port schedule that changed too quickly. A vendor that existed only 6 months. A storage facility paid through 3 layers of companies. She flagged what she could. Vincent listened. Sometimes he pushed back. Sometimes she won. The first time he accepted one of her revisions without argument, she stared at him across his desk. What he asked. "You hate losing. I hate being wrong more. That is new." "No," he said. "You just never saw me admit it." His eyes held hers too long. Lena looked away first. The burner phone came from a pharmacy in Covington. She bought it during a trip for diapers and baby lotion, one guard near the door and another by the car. She slipped the small box beneath a pack of wipes, paid cash from money Vincent had not given her, and hid it in the lining of her purse. She told herself it was for emergencies. The lie lasted until midnight. Theo was asleep. Vincent was downstairs in a meeting. Lena sat on the bathroom floor with the shower running just like she had in Nashville when fear needed cover. She searched for the federal tip line connected to organized crime activity along Gulf shipping routes. Her first message was careful. 3 possible Marino associates observed near a child in New Orleans. Tattoo on one subject. Black dagger with rosary. Possible surveillance connected to Rourke Maritime conflict. She expected nothing. The call came 2 days later. "Ms. Hart," a man said. "My name is Agent Daniel Mercer. I believe we should talk." They met at a roadside diner outside Covington on a morning when Vincent thought she was seeing her attorney, which was not fully a lie. She had seen the attorney first. Agent Mercer was not what Lena expected. He was not hard-eyed or dramatic. He wore a gray jacket, ordered black coffee, and looked like the kind of man people forgot 5 minutes after passing him on the street. That made him more dangerous. He slid a photograph across the table. Lena looked down. Theo in the park swing. His face circled in red. For a second, the diner disappeared. The waitress, the coffee, the rain ticking against the windows. There was only her baby's open mouth laughing and the red circle around his face. Her hand closed around the edge of the table. "Where did you get this phone recovered during a traffic stop involving known Marino associates?" Her mouth went dry. "They had my son's picture." Mercer's expression did not change. "They had 6. Lena pushed the photograph back like it burned. Mercer did not touch it. We have been building a case against the Marino family for years. They are expanding through Gulf shipping. Rourke Maritime is one of the obstacles. You mean Vincent is. We investigate patterns. Vincent Rourke is a pattern with excellent lawyers. Lena almost stood. Mercer lifted one hand slightly. I am not asking you to hand me Vincent Rourke. Good, because I won't. His eyes sharpened. You still love him. Lena hated him for seeing it. I am here because of my son. Then, listen as a mother. The Marinos will not stop because your child is innocent. Innocence makes him useful. They will use him to pressure Rourke, punish Rourke, or draw Rourke into a mistake. Lena looked at the photograph again. Theo's tiny hands gripped the swing chains. His face was bright with trust. How do you stop them? Information. Names, cars, locations, anything you hear tied to Marino movement. You want me to spy inside Vincent's house? I want you to survive the war already standing in your living room. Lena laughed softly without humor. What happens if Vincent finds out Mercer's answer came too smoothly? Then you tell him you did what you had to do. Lena stared at him. You have never been loved by a man like Vincent Rourke. Mercer held her gaze. No, but I have buried women who were. She left without agreeing. That night, Vincent found her in Theo's nursery. Theo had fallen asleep with one hand open beside his face. Lena sat in the rocking chair, still wearing the sweater she had worn to meet Mercer. The room was dim, lit only by a small lamp shaped like a moon. Vincent leaned against the doorway. You saw your attorney? Yes. It was almost true. His eyes narrowed slightly, but he let it pass. He is breathing, Vincent said. Lena looked up. What, Theo? You keep checking his chest. She looked back at the crib. So do you. Vincent crossed the room slowly and crouched beside the chair, careful not to wake the baby. Yes, he said. In the low light, the hard lines of his face softened. He looked tired, not physically, though he probably was. Tired somewhere deeper. I thought if I never had this, he said quietly, looking at Theo, I could never lose it. Lena's throat tightened. And now, his eyes stayed on their son. Now I understand I was already losing something. I just did not know his name. The words opened a door in her chest she had been trying to hold shut. For a moment she wanted to tell him everything. Mercer, the photograph, the red circle around Theo's laughing face, the burner phone hidden beneath the folded towels in her bathroom cabinet. Then Vincent reached into the crib and touched 2 fingers lightly to Theo's blanket, as if proving to himself the child was still there. Lena stayed silent. The shower was off. The house was quiet, and the lie settled into the room beside them. The lie did not become heavy all at once. At first it was small enough for Lena to carry in the pocket of her robe while she rocked Theo to sleep. It buzzed once beneath folded towels, glowed once in the dark bathroom, waited quietly behind the locked screen of a phone Vincent did not know existed. She told herself she had not betrayed him. Not yet. She had not given Agent Mercer anything that could destroy Vincent. Not his contracts, not his accounts, not the names of men who came to the estate after midnight and left before dawn. She sent only what touched the Marino family. A partial license plate from a black Cadillac that had circled the service road twice. A description of a man Cole mentioned during a security briefing. The name of a warehouse outside Baton Rouge that Vincent cursed under his breath before ending a call. Small things. Careful things. Mother things. That was how Lena justified it. But betrayal did not care how carefully it was measured. It still had a taste. Bitter and metallic. Like fear held too long behind the teeth. The strange part was that the more Lena lied, the more Vincent seemed to change. He came home earlier. Not always at 6, but close enough that Theo began listening for him before the hour struck. The baby would stop mid-crawl, one hand planted on the rug, head tilted toward the hall, as if he could hear Vincent's footsteps through walls and security codes. Then the door would open. Vincent would appear in the nursery with his sleeves rolled and his face still wearing the cold shape of business. Theo never cared. He would squeal, slap both hands on the floor, and launch himself forward with wild determination. Every time Vincent's mask cracked. Not much. Just enough. "There he is," Vincent would murmur, crouching to catch him. Theo would crash into his knees, grab his shirt, and pull himself up like conquest was a family trait. Lena watched from the rocking chair, a book open in her lap that she was no longer reading. She hated how natural they looked together. She hated how much she wanted it to be real. Vincent began letting her into meetings that involved Theo's safety. At first, she thought it was theater, another way to make her feel included while decisions had already been made. But then he started pausing before answering Cole, turning to Lena with that unreadable face. "What do you think?" The first time he asked, every man in the room went still. Cole looked at Vincent as if waiting for the trick. Lena looked at him too. Vincent did not smile, did not soften the question, did not explain it away. He waited. Lena glanced down at the map spread across the library table. The estate perimeter had been marked in blue ink. 2 public roads, 1 private service route, water access to the east tree coverage along the south fence. "The service road is the weak point," she said. "Not because it is open, because everyone knows you know it is weak. That makes it the place they use for distraction, not entry." Cole's brow shifted slightly. Vincent looked at the map. And the real entry. The water. One of the security men scoffed softly before he could stop himself. Vincent's eyes moved to him. The man went quiet. Lena continued. "If Marino wants to scare you, he comes through the road. If he wants to reach Theo, he avoids your strongest assumptions. The lakeside looks protected because it is inconvenient, not because it is impossible." Vincent studied her for a long second. Then he looked at Cole. "Add 2 men to the east access. Cameras on the dock by tonight." Cole nodded once. Lena tried not to feel the small, dangerous warmth of being heard. That night after Theo fell asleep, Vincent found her in the kitchen. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant murmur of men changing shifts outside. He poured 2 glasses of water, not bourbon, and handed one to her. "You were right today. I know." His mouth twitched. "You always say that like modesty was personally rude to you. I was married to you. Modesty would have been eaten alive." For a moment the kitchen felt almost familiar. Not like the old penthouse with its marble silence and locked doors. This was softer somehow. Theo's bottle drying beside the sink. A burp cloth over the back of a chair. Vincent, barefoot in dress pants, his shirt open at the throat, looking less like a king and more like a tired father learning where the baby spoons were kept. Lena looked away first. Vincent noticed. He noticed everything. "You still don't trust me." The words were quiet. Lena took a sip of water. "I trust you with Theo in your arms." His eyes darkened slightly. "But not with the truth. You taught me that truth was something you rationed." He absorbed that without flinching. "I did. No defense, no correction. Just 2 words that landed harder because they were clean." Lena's fingers tightened around the glass. The burner phone felt suddenly alive upstairs beneath the towels. Vincent set his glass down. "I am trying, Lena. I know. Do you?" She looked at him then. There was no performance in his face, no command hiding in the corners of his mouth, only exhaustion and a kind of restraint she did not know what to do with. "I do," she said. The truth of it scared her more than the lie. The next morning, Theo took 3 steps. It happened in the garden courtyard beneath a pale Louisiana sky. The air smelled like damp grass and the magnolia tree blooming near the wall. Theo stood wobbling beside a low stone bench, one hand on Lena's knee, the other reaching toward Vincent, who crouched a few feet away with both arms open. "Come on, little man," Vincent said softly. Theo bounced once on unsteady legs. Lena held her breath. "He's not ready." Vincent did not take his eyes off Theo. "He is deciding that." Theo released Lena's knee. One step, then another. His face twisted with concentration, dark brows pulling together in a look so much like Vincent that Lena almost laughed. The third step tilted too far. Vincent caught him before he fell, lifting him into the air as Theo shrieked with delighted outrage. Lena covered her mouth. He walked. Vincent looked at her over Theo's head. "We saw it." The words stayed between them. "We. Not mine. Not yours. Ours." For one foolish second, Lena let herself imagine what life could have been if they had started here. No secrets, no running, no hospital call, no men at parks, no red circles around her son's face. Then the burner phone buzzed in her bathroom cabinet that evening. She waited until Vincent went downstairs to meet with Cole. Theo was asleep, one hand curled around the ear of the blue rabbit. Lena shut herself in the bathroom, turned on the shower, and pulled the phone from beneath the folded towels. Mercer's message was short. "Marino planning direct contact with Rourke. Timing matters. Need confirmation of location." Lena stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Down the hall, Vincent's voice drifted from Theo's nursery. He had gone back in after the meeting was delayed. He was reading softly from a picture book about a bear who lost his way home. Theo babbled at him between sentences. Lena deleted the message. Then she sat on the edge of the tub with the shower running and the phone in her hand, unable to breathe properly. She had crossed one line already. The next one waited. It came before sunrise. Lena was in Theo's nursery changing his diaper while the sky beyond the curtains turned from black to gray. Theo kicked his legs and tried to roll away, making a game of disobedience. Lena had one hand on his stomach, the other reaching for a clean diaper when something moved beyond the window. At first she thought it was a bird, a dark shape hovering above the tree line. Too still, too deliberate. Her body understood before her mind did. She scooped Theo into her arms, diaper half fastened, and backed away from the window. Another shape appeared, then another. 3 black drones hung above the east lawn facing the nursery windows like patient insects. Theo laughed and grabbed at her necklace. Then the house changed. No siren, no screaming alarm, just a sequence of sounds that made Lena's skin turn cold. A lock clicked, then another. The lights in the hallway shifted from warm gold to low white. A calm male voice came through hidden speakers. "Ms. Hart, step away from the windows. Keep the child low. Remain inside the nursery." Lena dropped to the floor behind the crib, holding Theo against her chest. His bare legs kicked under the blanket she wrapped around him. "It's okay," she whispered. The words were useless. She said them anyway. Outside, men moved across the lawn with frightening precision. Vincent's men did not run. They flowed. 2 to the garden wall, 1 to the garage path, 3 along the east side, weapons visible beneath open coats. A sharp crack split the morning. 1 drone dropped from the sky and vanished into the trees. Theo startled and began to cry. Lena turned her body between him and the window, curling over him as if flesh could stop glass. Another crack. The second drone fell. The third rose higher, then darted toward the lake road fast and smooth. It disappeared beyond the trees before the next shot came. The nursery door opened. Vincent entered without knocking. He wore a dark shirt and dress pants, no jacket, phone in one hand, gun in the other. Lena had never seen him with a weapon before. Not like this, not in their son's room. His eyes went first to Theo, then to her, then to the window. "Are you hurt? No. Did you go near the glass? No." He crossed the room and knelt in front of them. Theo was still crying, red-faced and furious, one fist tangled in Lena's sweater. Vincent reached out, then stopped. "Let me hold him." Not a command. A request. Lena hesitated. He saw it. Pain crossed his face and disappeared. "Please." She handed Theo over. Vincent tucked him against his chest, one large hand spread over his back. He set the gun on the dresser far from the crib barrel, turned away, then pressed his mouth to Theo's dark curls. Theo's cries softened into hiccups. He knew Vincent now, knew his voice, his hands, the steady sway he used without thinking. Lena hated how much that comforted her. Vincent looked toward the window. They were testing response time. Lena stared at him. Those things were outside his room. Yes, and that is all you have to say. His eyes returned to hers. "No, that is all I can say without frightening you more." She let out a sharp, breathless laugh. "You think I am not already frightened?" A shout sounded outside. Cole's voice, then another man answering. Vincent stood with Theo in his arms. "They are close enough to risk exposure. That means Marino is done watching. What does he want?" Vincent did not answer fast enough. Lena's stomach dropped. "What does he want, a meeting?" "No, Lena, no, you are not going. He asked for neutral ground. That means it is not neutral." "I know." "Then why would you walk into it? Because if I do not, they come closer to this house." He looked down at Theo. To him, the security room was beneath the house behind a door Lena had passed a dozen times without noticing. Vincent opened it with his thumbprint and let her in after Theo was asleep under guard. The room looked nothing like the rest of the estate. No warm wood, no old books, no soft lamps. Screens covered one wall showing the front gate, the tree line, the nursery hallway, the garage, the dock, the road beyond the property. Places Lena had walked through while pretending the estate could become a home. Cole stood at the central table with his arms crossed. He had a scar near his chin and the permanent expression of a man who expected betrayal before breakfast. He nodded once. "Lena." She glanced at Vincent. He said, "She is part of this." Something passed through the room. Resistance. Surprise. Cole tapped one of the screens. It showed tire tracks in wet mud beyond the eastern fence. They launched from the old maintenance road, parked outside camera range. 3 drones. 2 recovered. 3rd escaped. Vincent's voice was flat. "How long before we took down the first 38 seconds? Too slow." Cole's jaw tightened. They were above the nursery window for 9 seconds. The room seemed to tilt. 9 seconds. Long enough to see Theo. Long enough to send an image. Long enough to remind Vincent Rourke that even walls had shadows. Vincent did not move. His face changed in a way that made every man in the room look away. "Find the launch team. Already moving." "No," Vincent said softly. "Move faster." Cole cleared his throat. "Marino sent word an hour before the drones. Anthony wants a sit-down tomorrow night. Abandoned sugar refinery outside Baton Rouge." Lena looked at Vincent. "Tomorrow night," Vincent nodded. "They are forcing a clock. It is a trap." "Yes." The ease of the answer made her angry. "You cannot just say yes like that makes it manageable." Vincent turned to her. "It is manageable because I know it is a trap. That is insane." Cole looked like he agreed and had no intention of saying so. Vincent's voice stayed low. "If I refuse, they test the house again. Maybe with drones, maybe with men, maybe with a car at the gate, maybe with a woman holding a baby at a grocery store so no one sees the gun until she is close enough." Lena flinched. Vincent saw it and something softened in his voice, but not in the truth. "They know about Theo. That changes the rules. The rules were broken the second they took his picture." "Yes," Vincent said, "which is why I ended." The rest of the day moved like a storm trapped behind glass. Lena tried to keep Theo on schedule. Breakfast, nap, lunch, blocks on the nursery rug, a walk in the protected courtyard. The ordinary rhythm of motherhood laid gently over the sound of men preparing for violence below. Theo had no idea. He clapped when blocks fell. He chased the blue rabbit across the carpet. He pulled himself up on the crib rail and laughed at his own power. Every sound he made seemed too bright for the house around him. Vincent came and went. Calls in English. One brief conversation in Italian. Another in Spanish that ended with his voice going so cold, Lena left the hallway before he saw her listening. By evening, the estate felt sealed away from the world. Extra guards had arrived. Cars sat hidden beyond the trees. The kitchen staff was sent home early. Cole moved through rooms with a phone in one hand and a gun visible beneath his jacket. Lena found Vincent in his study after Theo fell asleep. The lamps were low. Papers covered the desk. A glass of bourbon sat untouched near his hand. He was not reading. He was staring at a leather folder. When Lena entered, he closed it. That old motion. That old secrecy. Her heart sank. What is that? Vincent looked at the folder, then back at her. For 1 second, she saw the instinct to hide. Then he pushed it across the desk. Lena approached slowly. Inside were legal documents. Her name appeared on the first page. Then Theo's. Her fingers went numb as she turned them. Custody transfer in the event of Vincent's death. Trust access. Safe houses, doctors, pilots, security routes, instructions for Cole, account numbers, letters sealed in envelopes marked for Theo when he turned 18. Everything arranged. Everything anticipated. Lena looked up. You planned your death like a business transaction. Vincent stood. I planned your survival. Her throat burned. Do not say that like it makes this better. It does not make it better. It makes it prepared. I do not want prepared. I want you not to go. His face tightened. Lena. No. Do not use that voice. What voice? The one that says the decision has already been made, and I am only here to witness it. Vincent came around the desk but stopped before he reached her. If there were another way that kept them from this house, I would take it. You do not know that. You only know how to walk toward violence before it reaches you. I know men like Anthony Marino. And I know you. That stopped him. Lena held the folder in shaking hands. You think if you stand in front of every bullet that makes you a good father. His eyes hardened. It makes me a father who is present. Dead is not present. Silence fell. The words hung between them brutal and plain. Vincent looked away first. Lena stepped closer. For once, let someone else help. His mouth curved without humor. The police. The FBI. The room went still. Too still. Vincent's eyes returned to hers. Why would you say that? Lena's blood chilled. She had spoken too quickly, too close to the truth. Because they exist, she said. Because this is bigger than your men. Vincent studied her, every old instinct in him sharpened. What have you done? Nothing. The lie came too fast. He heard it. Of course he heard it. His face closed. Lena. Theo cried down the hall before he could say more. A thin, sleepy cry, but enough. Lena used it like a door. She set the folder on the desk and left. Vincent did not follow. At midnight, she sat on the bathroom floor with the shower running and the burner phone in her hand. Her thumb hovered over Mercer's number. Theo slept in the room across the hall with 2 guards outside his door. Vincent was somewhere below building a plan that might get him killed. Anthony Marino had a photograph of her son, maybe more now, from the drone that escaped. Lena thought of Vincent in the hospital, his finger caught in Theo's tiny fist. She thought of him in the garden catching Theo's first steps. She thought of the folder on his desk, a future arranged around his absence. Then she called. Mercer answered on the second ring. You have something. Lena closed her eyes. The meeting is tomorrow night. Abandoned sugar refinery outside Baton Rouge. A pause. How sure are you? Sure. Who will be there, Vincent? Anthony Marino. I do not know how many men. Mercer's voice changed. Sharper now. Moving already. You did the right thing. No, Lena whispered. I did the only thing left. We can stop Marino. Can you stop him without using Vincent as bait? Silence. That was her answer. Lena's voice hardened. Agent Mercer, we will do everything we can to keep Rourke alive. That is not a promise. No, Mercer said. It is the truth. Lena almost laughed. Everyone wanted points for honesty after the damage was done. She ended the call and sat there until the shower ran cold. Vincent came to her room later near 2 a.m. Lena was standing by the window looking out at the dark lawn. The glass reflected her face back at her. Pale, tired, unrecognizable in pieces. He did not knock. He also did not enter all the way. He stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, like a man respecting a boundary he hated. I know you are awake. Lena did not turn. You always did. He stepped inside, then slowly. The room was lit by the small lamp beside the bed. Rain brushed against the window softer now. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked under the weight of a guard passing by. Vincent stopped a few feet behind her. I know you think I confuse love with control. You do. The answer came out tired, not cruel. I am trying not to. Trying is not the same as changing. No, he said. But it is the first honest thing I have ever done badly. That made her turn. He looked different in the low light, less untouchable. No jacket, no shoes. Dark hair, slightly disordered face, shadowed by exhaustion. The man New Orleans feared had disappeared, leaving only Theo's father and the husband who had never learned how to stay without building walls. Lena's anger weakened. She wished it had not. Why do you always go alone? She asked. I am not going alone, you know what I mean. Vincent looked toward the window. For a long moment he said nothing. Then my mother died when I was 12. Lena went still. He had never told her that. Not in 2 years of marriage. I know she died, Lena said quietly. You never told me how. A car bomb meant for my father. The room seemed to lose air. Vincent's voice stayed controlled, but something beneath it had gone raw. I was in the house. I heard the blast. The windows shook. By the time I reached the driveway, the car was fire. My father pulled me back by the collar because I tried to run toward it. Lena's hand rose to her mouth. Vincent. He did not hold me. He did not tell me it was not my fault. He looked me in the face and said, anything you love can be used to make you kneel. Lena could see him then. A boy in smoke and broken glass. A father turning grief into doctrine. A life built from one terrible sentence. Vincent looked at her. I loved you like a man building walls. Her throat tightened. And I kept waiting for a door. I know. The words were barely above a whisper. The burner phone felt like a brand hidden in the room. Lena wanted to tell him. She wanted it so badly her chest hurt. But if she told him, he would stop the FBI. He would walk into the refinery with fewer allies and more pride. He would choose control because control had always answered faster than trust. So she crossed the room and kissed him instead. It was not gentle at first. It was grief, fear, memory, anger, love wearing the wrong coat. Vincent froze for half a breath, then his hand came up to her face with a restraint that nearly broke her. He kissed her like a man who knew he might not have the right and could not stop himself from wanting it anyway. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. Lena, do not make promises tonight. His thumb moved once along her cheek. "What do you want, then?" "The truth." He closed his eyes. "I am afraid." The words were so quiet she almost missed them. Vincent Rourke, who could make armed men lower their voices, stood in her room and said the thing he had spent his life burying. Lena's eyes burned. "So am I." He held her then, not like a cage, like a man holding on because the ground beneath him had finally cracked. Morning came gray and heavy. Vincent dressed in silence. Lena stood in the nursery with Theo on her hip, watching through the open door as Cole moved down the hallway, speaking into a radio. Men checked weapons in rooms where Theo could not see. Engines started beyond the trees. Vincent entered the nursery just before sunset. Theo reached for him immediately. For a moment, Vincent did not move. Then he took his son and held him close. Theo patted his face, babbling with bright seriousness. Vincent smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "Be good for your mother," he whispered. Lena's chest tightened. "He is 9 months old. His moral development is limited." Vincent looked at her. There it was again, that almost smile, the one that used to undo her. "Then you be good for him." She stepped closer. "Come back." His expression changed. Not because she had said something dramatic, because she had not dressed it as an order, not as anger, not as accusation. Just come back. Vincent kissed Theo's forehead, then handed him to Lena. His fingers brushed hers. "I will try." She hated the answer. She respected it more than a lie. The abandoned sugar refinery sat outside Baton Rouge, past a road lined with weeds, rusted fencing, and low water ditches shining under the moon. The building rose from the flat land like the skeleton of an old beast. Broken windows, collapsed metal stairs, brick walls stained by weather and time. The air smelled faintly sweet rotten and wet. Vincent arrived with Cole and 4 men. No convoy, no show of force. Just 2 black vehicles rolling into the yard with headlights cutting through mist. Anthony Marino waited inside the main processing floor. He was younger than Vincent by maybe 10 years, lean and sharp-faced with a pale suit that looked obscene in the ruined building. 6 men stood around him. More were hidden. Vincent knew it the second he stepped inside. Cole knew too. His hand shifted near his jacket. Vincent did not look at him. Anthony smiled. "Vincent Rourke. Fatherhood suits you." Vincent stopped 10 feet away. "Speak carefully." Anthony's smile widened. "Congratulations on the boy." The air changed. Cole's jaw tightened. Vincent remained still. Anthony slipped one hand into his pocket and pulled out a small printed photograph. He held it up between 2 fingers. Theo in the garden courtyard, taken from above, from the drone that escaped. Lena had been right to be afraid. Vincent's voice lowered. "Put that down." Anthony glanced at the photograph. "Beautiful child. Strong blood. Dangerous thing for a man like you to have." Vincent took 1 step forward. Every gun in the room rose. Cole moved with him. Vincent did not stop. "Say one more word about my son." Anthony laughed softly. "That is exactly why we are here. A year ago, nothing moved you. Not money, not threats, not dead men on docks. Now there is a crib in Mandeville with your weakness sleeping in it." Vincent's face went empty. "Name your price." "I do not want your money." "Then you came unprepared." Anthony's eyes hardened. "I want the eastern port routes, storage access, customs schedules, and I want you to understand that if you refuse, the next picture I send will not be from outside a window." Vincent smiled then. It was not warm. It was not human. "You should have asked for money." Anthony's smile faded. The lights shattered. Not all at once. One explosion of glass, then another. White beams cut through the broken windows. Federal agents' a voice thundered. "Weapons down." For half a second, no one moved. Then the refinery erupted. Gunfire cracked across the room. Men dove behind machinery. Sparks flew from rusted metal. Someone screamed. Cole shoved Vincent behind a concrete pillar as bullets chewed through the wall where he had been standing. Vincent came up firing. Not wild, not panicked. Controlled, precise, terrifying. Anthony ran toward a side exit. 2 agents breached from the left. One went down in open space, hit in the shoulder, exposed. Vincent saw him. Cole shouted, "No!" Vincent moved anyway. He crossed the gap, grabbed the wounded agent by the back of his vest, and dragged him behind cover as bullets sparked against the floor. A shot hit Vincent in the side. He staggered. Cole reached him, firing over his shoulder. Anthony was tackled near the exit by 3 agents. His pale suit hit the wet floor. The photograph of Theo skidded from his hand and landed near Vincent's shoe. Vincent looked down at it. Blood spread beneath his jacket. The agent he had saved pressed a hand to Vincent's side. "Stay with me." Vincent's eyes stayed on the photograph, then on the broken roof above him. Rain began to fall through the refinery in thin silver lines. Lena arrived at the hospital in Baton Rouge just after midnight with Theo in her arms and terror moving through her body like fever. Mercer met her near the private wing. There was an operation, he said. She stared at the blood on his cuff. "Is he alive?" "Yes." The word almost dropped her to the floor. Mercer reached out, but she stepped past him. Cole stood outside Vincent's room with his shirt torn and blood on his sleeve. His face was stone, but his eyes moved to Theo and softened for less than a second. "He is awake," Cole said. Lena shifted Theo higher on her hip. Does he know Cole did not ask what she meant? His silence was answer enough. Inside, Vincent lay against white pillows, pale under the hospital lights. Bandages wrapped his side. An IV ran into his arm. His eyes were open. They found Lena immediately. Then Theo. His face changed at the sight of his son. Pain. Relief. Love. Then his gaze returned to Lena, and everything colder came back. Theo slept against her shoulder, unaware of the blood, the secrets, the room full of things no baby should ever have to survive. Lena stepped closer. "Vincent." His voice was rough. "How long?" She stopped. No one else in the room spoke. Not Cole, not Mercer near the door, not the nurse checking the monitor. Lena knew exactly what he meant. Her fingers tightened around Theo's blanket. "Vincent." His eyes held hers. "How long have you been talking to the FBI?" The monitor beeped steadily between them. Outside, rain struck the hospital windows, and the man she had betrayed to save stood alive in front of her, waiting for the truth. Lena stood in the hospital room with Theo asleep against her shoulder and Vincent bleeding beneath white sheets, and for one terrible second she wished she could lie again. The wish passed quickly. She was too tired for another locked door. "Since Mandeville," she said. Vincent's face did not move. Cole looked away. Agent Mercer stayed near the door, silent for once. Vincent's eyes remained on Lena. "What did you give him license plates?" "Names connected to Marino. The sugar refinery. Nothing from Rourke Maritime. Nothing about your clean business." His mouth tightened. "You decided where betrayal ended." Lena held Theo closer. "You decided where protection became control." The room went quiet. The monitor beside Vincent kept its steady rhythm, indifferent to love, blood, and ruined trust. Vincent looked at Mercer. "Leave." Mercer did not move at first. Lena turned her head. "Please." That did it. Mercer stepped into the hall. Cole followed after one look from Vincent. The door closed behind them. Lena and Vincent were alone except for their son. Vincent tried to shift higher against the pillows, and pain cut across his face. Lena moved without thinking, reaching for him. He caught her wrist before she touched him. Not hard, just enough to stop her. You were afraid of me. It was not a question. Lena's eyes burned. Yes. His fingers loosened around her wrist, and still. She looked down at Theo. His small hand rested against her collarbone, warm and trusting. Sometimes. Vincent absorbed that like a bullet that entered slowly. I thought if I told you everything, you would run. I ran because you told me nothing. His eyes closed. For a while, only rain spoke against the windows. When he opened them again, the anger had not disappeared, but something in it had changed. It was no longer searching for a place to strike. It had turned inward. My mother died in a car bomb, he said. Lena stilled. He had told her pieces the night before, but not like this. Not with his voice stripped raw by pain and medicine, and the sight of his son sleeping between them. I was 12. I heard the explosion from inside the house. My father pulled me back when I tried to reach her. He did not hold me. He did not cry. He told me anything I loved could be used to make me kneel. Lena's throat closed. So I became a man who did not kneel, Vincent said. I thought that made me strong. He looked at Theo. Then I walked into that emergency room and saw my son with tubes in his hand. I did not know his birthday. I did not know his middle name. I did not know what song made him sleep. I was on my knees before I touched him. Lena sat slowly in the chair beside the bed. Theo stirred, then settled again. I should have told you, she whispered. I know that. I knew it the moment you touched his hand. Maybe before. Vincent's jaw worked once. And I should have given you a life where telling me felt safe. The apology did not come dressed in flowers or jewelry or old Vincent charm. It came plain. That made it harder to refuse. Lena wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. I will not live in a cage, Vincent. Not for money, not for safety, not even for love. I know. No, you need to hear me. If you ever use custody to frighten me again, I will fight you. In court, in public, anywhere I have to. His eyes held hers. Good. She blinked. Good. I do not want you staying because you are afraid to leave. A tired laugh almost escaped her. That sounds dangerously mature for a man with a bullet wound. Do not insult me while I am medicated. For the first time since the refinery, Lena felt the corner of her mouth move. Vincent saw it. His face softened, and that softness nearly undid her. The weeks after the hospital did not heal them quickly. Nothing real did. Vincent returned to the Mandeville estate, pale, irritated, and under strict medical orders he treated like hostile negotiations. Lena slept in the room across from Theo, not with Vincent. Some nights they spoke. Some nights they did not. Some mornings she woke angry all over again. Some evenings she found Vincent sitting on the nursery floor, letting Theo climb over him while he winced silently every time a small knee landed near his bandages. Agent Mercer came once with federal documents. He needed Lena's sealed statement against Anthony Marino. Vincent stood beside her in the library while Mercer explained the process. His hands were clasped behind his back. His face was cold enough to frost the windows, but he did not interrupt. Mercer looked at Lena. This is your choice. Lena glanced at Vincent. He looked like the words physically hurt him. Still, he said, it is. That was the first proof. Not the promise. The restraint. Lena gave the statement. Marino's network cracked. Not completely. Men like that always left shadows behind. But routes closed. Accounts froze. 2 port officials resigned before dawn on the same day. Rourke Maritime lost contracts Vincent could have kept if he were willing to stay dirty. He was not. At least, not in the same way. Lena saw the cost. Men stopped visiting. Phones rang less often and more dangerously. Cole spent long nights behind closed doors. Vincent sold 2 warehouses and fired an attorney who had once been untouchable. One evening, Lena found him in the study staring at a stack of termination papers. "Regret it?" she asked. Vincent looked up. "Yes." The honesty surprised her. Then he added, "But I would regret keeping it more." That was the second proof. Maggie visited in early summer and hated the estate on principle. "This place looks like a rich vampire learned about home security," she said, walking into the nursery with a tote bag full of toys. Lena laughed for the first time in days. Vincent appeared in the doorway holding Theo. Maggie pointed at him. "I still do not trust you." Vincent nodded. "That is fair." Theo chose that moment to pat Vincent's cheek and say, "Da." The room froze. Vincent looked down at him. "What did you say?" Theo smiled, proud and drooling. "Da." Lena pressed a hand over her mouth. Vincent did not move for a long second. Then his eyes lifted to Lena, and there was no empire in them. No command, no violence, only wonder. That was the third proof. Autumn came soft over Lake Pontchartrain. The house changed by inches. Fewer guards near Lena's door. More conversations before decisions. No monitoring her calls. No surprise lawyers. No locked rooms she was not allowed to ask about. There were still gates, still cameras, still danger beyond the trees. But Vincent no longer called every wall love. One evening, under the oak trees behind the house, he asked her to marry him again. There was no crowd, no orchestra, no old diamond from a broken marriage, only a thin gold ring with a small, imperfect stone resting in his palm. Theo sat on a blanket nearby, chewing on a wooden block. Vincent did not kneel because of the wound in his side. Somehow that made it feel more honest. "I do not want back what we had," he said. "Good," Lena answered. "I buried that woman. I want to build something where you can leave any room and still choose to come back." She looked at him for a long time. "That may be the most romantic legal clause I have ever heard." His mouth curved. "Marry me, Lena. Not because I can protect you. Because I finally understand you are not mine to keep." The wind moved through the trees. Theo babbled to himself, serious and bright under the fading sky. Lena felt fear rise in her. Not warning fear. Living fear. The kind that came with choosing something precious after knowing how badly precious things could break. "One condition," she said. "Name it. No vows about never being afraid." Vincent's face softened. "Then I will be afraid with you. Not in front of me. Beside you." She placed her hand in his. "Yes." Their wedding was small. Maggie cried and denied it. Cole stood near the back, pretending not to watch every tree line. Theo toddled down the grass holding one flower and half a cracker, which everyone agreed was close enough. When Lena reached Vincent beneath the oaks, he did not take her hand. He offered his. She chose to give it. Later, thunder rolled far across the lake. Vincent looked at the sky, then at Lena. "Do we stay inside or go in?" Lena looked at their son, then at the man beside her. "We decide together." Vincent nodded, and this time the silence between them was not a wall. It was peace.